Good afternoon, everyone. We hope you're enjoying the conference. My name's Charlene Dickey, and I'm with Apttus. And I'd like to welcome you to our session on emerging trends, digitizing business processes with contract lifecycle management. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Linda Chuan, who's the Senior Director of Global Strategic Sourcing at Salesforce. I'd like to give a little background on Linda before we get going. Linda is a seasoned thought leader and sourcing executive with a public accounting background from KPMG and a strong ability to execute from vision and strategy. She is experienced with organizations large and small, such as GE Capital, The Gap, PeopleSoft, Siebel Systems, and Yahoo, during various phases of growth and downsizing. Linda is best known as a pioneer, advocate, and co-champion of CRM for SRM, which is Supplier Relationship Management, so more on the buy side at Salesforce, along with Bruce Richardson, Chief Enterprise Strategist. Linda led the digitization transformation of sourcing processes and is leading the sourcing practice with innovative and award-winning solutions. Without further ado, please welcome Linda Chuan.
Thank you. So I'm glad we're not being videotaped. So this is going to be different for me as well. I can't hear myself because there's no, I can only see that you're engaged with me by your facial expressions. So, and your, yes, sign language. Thank you. So thank you for being here. We didn't realize it was going to be this hot. And so if you see me fanning myself, excuse me, but I am melting literally as we speak. I'm just like, so how many of you here are already Salesforce customers? Yay, so nice to see you. Thank you. And how many of you are already also Apttus customers? Awesome. Also majority of you. So thank you very much for being our customers. We can't do it without you. And so I'm like, next. There we go. And so for those of you who already know Salesforce, we've been growing very quickly, very fast, 25 to 30% year over year, every year. Just a little bit of background. We finished last year at over $8 billion. When I joined the company in 2009, we were barely $500 million in revenue, okay? Back then, when I first joined, about $200 million in spend. Today, we finished the year at $3.1 billion in a spend portfolio. So massive growth. And of course, you're familiar with our values, and the most important value to us is, of course, trust. We are so focused on making sure that you as our customers trust us in everything we do for you. Our transparency, our values, everything is around trust with our customers first. We are dedicated to your growth, right? You have to grow and be successful before we can grow and be successful. And then of course, innovation, you're guaranteed 3 upgrades every year. So anything in terms of enhancements, future technologies, you get that along with the Salesforce solution as well as Apttus too, because Apttus is also built on the Salesforce platform. And then of course, we're very, very strong and focused on equality. It's a little bit different than diversity. It's equality for all. How many of you were aware of that Indianapolis law that was going to get passed where they were going to be discriminatory against the LGBTQ community? So our CEO and our head of the Indianapolis office stood up against that and was able to make a difference. And so it's things like this that makes me so proud to be part of this company. But also with your support, thank you again. Just moving on very quickly, we are witnessing this huge, massive change right now, right? From this mainframe long time ago, I won't even tell you. I don't know how many of you remember a big mainframe computer back in, thank you, thank you as well. Me too, believe it or not. I won't tell you how old I was. But now we're into this whole social, when social came out and bursted the market with Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat. How many of you have Snapchat? Facebook and Twitter? How are you keeping up at work? There's too many channels coming up at us. But with the whole social and mobile, we're connected 24/7. It's a good thing and a bad thing because you can never really get disconnected, right? And then the next thing with all of the innovation and change, the Internet of Things. Everybody's kind of been hearing about that in the last year or so. Now you got cars that can talk to you, right? It's telling you, oh, time to get your oil change or time to get your tire change. Oh, now you got refrigerators. One of my neighbors has a Samsung No, it wasn't $5,000. It was $10,000 refrigerator. It has an iPad, a huge iPad in the front of it. That's sort of the home center. And it tells them, oh, you're low in this thing and you're low in this thing. Really? Now you have all these things talking to you. And now, of course, we're moving into the age of AI. With all of this data, did you know in the last 2 years or so, over 50% of the entire world's data was created in the last couple of years? And it's going faster and faster? Yeah. And what are we going to do with all that data? And so we talk about artificial intelligence. Wouldn't it be awesome if we can garner insights and action out of all that intelligence? Then I go on to say, there's been a lot of advancements and innovation on the sales side, right? Why do salespeople get all the best and the latest technologies? What about those of us who are in procurement and the buy side? Then I would also argue that the next frontier, in terms of after you're getting your customers in, you have to be able to fulfill, right, what you sold them. So procurement and sourcing, we are becoming one of the fast growing professions and departments out there. There's not enough people in our profession to fill the needs. All these companies, just last year alone, over 246, if I have that number correct, over 246 new startups, companies started in San Francisco. Eventually, all of them are gonna need procurement and sourcing people, right? And so, at Salesforce, we're changing from just a sales cloud, sales solution for your customer relationship management tool set to a whole platform of solutions that is ensuring your success as our customer. There's all these different things, but I'm going to focus on just digitization and how do you digitize and transform your business processes today. So I mentioned at Salesforce how we've grown so fast. And for most of us, procurement sourcing, we report into finance or we're part of SG&A, right? So we can't grow as fast as the rest of the company. And so I call that gap between how fast the company is growing from a revenue perspective in the front office to our back office. We probably won't grow as fast. That big gap is our opportunity. How are we going to solve it and increase our automation and our scalability to be able to support the rest of the company to enable them to grow and bring in the revenue? What I found at Salesforce since starting at 2009 was that we were entering information. Don't be afraid to admit it. How many of you are still doing Excel spreadsheets? Thank you. I appreciate that. That's how we grew too in my department, right? We tracked all of our projects, what I call WIP, work in process or work for process, in terms of all of our sourcing projects and RFPs and initiatives that we're working on. We tracked it in a Excel spreadsheet. Then we also tracked contracts in our own instance, internal instance of Salesforce. We initially used it for just a contract repository. Then guess what we're measured on? Savings. So I have yet another spreadsheet to capture savings. And what I found out very quickly early on was that I'm making my team enter data 3 times because all of those things related to a deal or to a contract or to an RFP, they're all similar data, right? Who's the supplier? Who did you do the deal with? Who is the internal business partner that you're supporting? Who's the sourcing partner? How much was it? What's the PO number? And so on. Same information was being entered all 3 times. And I was facing a mutiny on my hands. Then I also thought about in procurement, we talk about data and information, right? Salesforce is known for the customer relationship database, and we have a centralized area to put all of our customer data. How many of you have a centralized area to put all of your supplier data? All supplier data, including communications, phone calls, emails, contracts, and all of that stuff? Not yet, right? Similarly, I'm sure, I was on a webinar, over 150 something companies, 400 something registered, over 150 something companies actually logged on. My poll, I asked them, how many of you as a company out there have actually digitized your procurement, even contracts? No, I shouldn't say no one. Less than 50% have a digitization strategy. And of that less than 50% started on it. So that means a quarter, maybe a quarter of that group. So why is that important though? How are you managing internally when suppliers did not meet your SLAs? When you have servers that show up DOA? dead on arrival, when you have service level partners that don't meet their service levels, does that impact your customers? Yeah, it does. Who's working on it? At one point, when I was working at Gap, how many of you know and find out that one of your suppliers is charging your business units different prices, depending on if they're Old Navy, or if they're Banana, or if they're Gap, right? And nobody's talking to each other. So we, as a sourcing procurement organization, we act as the centralized, sort of the knowledge base for all of our suppliers for the company, right? So I'm getting to the point where I have a centralized location, a database where I can see all of this information about my suppliers. And how are your employees working today? How many of you have an internal chatter or a Facebook-like collaboration tool, and you're actually using it, and you would admit to it, okay? And for those of you who don't, you still do email, you still do phone calls, right? You still do maybe instant messaging, right? Yahoo messaging, Google messaging. Now I've got all these things coming at me. So our employees, I tell you what, by 2020, I don't know if you've heard of this data point, by 2020, over 50% of the workforce is going to be who? Millennials. And what do millennials want? They want things right now. My 12-year-old daughter wants something right now. Okay, they're not going to wait for, oh, let me wait to serve up this data. Oh, I want this report. Let me wait to, log a ticket with Corp IT and wait a week, right? So how are you then solving for that real-time need of the business? Not just for the millennials, but even just for today, for the ability to make decisions. So then I decided to sort of do this roadmap, 3-4 year. Actually, I've been at Salesforce 7.5 years now, and it's taking me about 4 years, 3-4 years, to kind of digitize what I call source to contract, as well as some of the procurement, the rec to PO side. So the sourcing that I'm talking about, let me scope that a little bit. It's the upstream strategic sourcing activities, and then procurement is more of the rec to PO transactional, okay? And so we went through this journey of digitizing and transforming how we engage with each other at Salesforce from a supplier buy-side perspective. So I came up with this hypothesis way back in 2012. Arguably, I work at the world's best CRM company, customer relationship management. So why aren't we focusing on the same strategies or the same focus on the supplier side, especially those suppliers who are top 3%, right, of our spend base, who are critical and strategic. I'm not saying do it for all of your suppliers, but do you know where your top suppliers are, what they're doing, how are they engaging with their business partners? Most people don't, most companies do not. And so why can't aren't we tracking the same things? A company, a customer, isn't that basically a company at its rudimentary data set? It's a company, it's an entity, and you're tracking who? The sales side. So on your customer side, you're tracking the account reps, the account reps people, and the heads of sales and marketing. On the supplier side, what is it you're tracking? Same thing, right? It's a company. What's the legal entity? Who is your account rep? Who's the account rep's boss and their boss, SVP, whoever, regional VPs, their CIOs, their CMOs in the C-suite. It's the same information. Why are you tracking it on one side and you're not tracking it on the other side? Furthermore, why aren't you sharing that information, right? In a safe way, of course. And we don't want to get into any SEC troubles, but so my hypothesis, I actually executed in 2014, where internally, I automated the source to contract process on Salesforce. I figured, why not take advantage of all the functionalities we have? It's mobile, like I can approve my contracts, I can approve my POs, I can approve contract language, whatever I need on my phone anywhere I go. It's end-to-end. I can see exactly, in terms of taking advantage of the reporting on the backside, I can see exactly what my teams are working on. I have instant dashboard and view into my supply base. Wouldn't that be cool? And how many of you still get or are getting emails from your CFOs or your CMOs, head of sales, hey, I'm going into a meeting with so-and-so, how much do we spend with them? Yeah? Well, I don't get those emails anymore. Here's your dashboard, Mr. CFO, Mr. CEO. You can go into it. They still email me though, but, but at least I know it's right there and it's real time. And what does real time mean? Real time means I don't have to wait for a report. Real time means I don't have to log a ticket. Real time means I don't have to wait for IT to say, oh yeah, we're gonna run this job on this day because it's when it's convenient for the rest of the system, right? Real time means I can get to it like that. And the data that's in there is up to date, to the minute, to the hour, to the day. Wouldn't that be cool? So that's what I kind of went and did. And of course, collaboration. We have full collaboration chatter capabilities for everything that I do throughout our process. And we can collaborate with anybody in the business, whether you're in legal or enterprise security or physical risk or anyone else who has a say in terms of the contract approval process. I can collaborate with even suppliers, with my internal business partners, with my own teams, and so forth. And so I have found a sort of a way to open up the way I do sourcing to be all of these things right away by leveraging the tool that I had. Digitizing it though, that's the most important key. So internally, my project was called Project Activate because I wanted to activate everything and bring all the data to the forefront. And how many of you grew up with Saturday morning cartoons? Yay! Wonder Twins? Project Activate, Wonder Twin Powers. But I didn't realize in Apttus, in the contract lifecycle management, when a contract is finished, you activate it. It was meant to be. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it till we implemented it. And so what I did at Salesforce was I started with the whole Salesforce platform, if you will. I used Apttus for my contract lifecycle management. I leveraged DocuSign. I mean, some of you also use EchoSign. It's some kind of an electronic signature tool, and to kind of finish up that cycle. And then on the front side, I still needed an electronic RFP tool, so I kind of leveraged Scout for that. And I also own meetings and events for the company. I also run temporary staff up program for the company. So for my meetings and events side, we're leveraging another tool called Lenos. But in essence, everything comes back into Salesforce, right? Because every transaction, every purchase ends up being a contract within Salesforce, and we push it through Apttus, and we automated the whole contract to signature process. Automated means no human touch necessary. How many of you have that? You touch a button, it just goes. Not only does it go for signature, it comes back for signature, and it uploads by itself into the database, right? It's magic. I call it magic. I'm gonna trademark this. You guys can't steal it. It's called Auto Magic. Yeah, you like that? Okay. Fast implementation. This project only took me 6 months with my team. I didn't have a PM. I didn't have anybody, sort of a special designer architect myself, because I have the benefit of being a Six Sigma black belt myself. I came out of the GE program, so that kind of helped with it as well. So I PM'd it. I helped design it. I had a team. I had my team, made them go through it with me, and we designed the process with workflow, with approvals, with reporting. I now, because of this whole project, I have a cycle time reporting capability of knowing how long it's taking my legal team to turn around something, how long it's taking my outsourced team to push something out for signature, how long it's even taking us, sourcing, to be able to negotiate something. Yeah? And imagine that the ability that you can, the insights that you can garner from those kinds of data points. Real-time reporting. So having digitized this means we're capturing information. And the beauty of capturing information, as my team is working in the tool, they are updating information. That's what I call real time. As they're working on an RFP, they're entering it into the tool. As they're awarding that RFP to a supplier and they're getting to contracts, they're working in the Apttus contract lifecycle management tool, right? Everything is systemized. But on the back end, what we're able to extract from it, look at the reporting piece that's so essential. We talk about big data, right? And what can we get from sort of the actionable intelligence? This is it, but you have to capture the data set first. Once you capture the data set, the real-time reporting of now, I have, most of us are measured by savings. I can have savings reporting by categories. I can have savings by annual, based on our plan. I have visibility to what my team is doing, and that's globally. I have teams in Europe, I have Asia, Singapore, Sydney, I have Japan. India's coming online pretty soon, but if they're using the same tool, single point of engagement is what I'm calling it. This is what everybody's using, single point of engagement. This is also my single point of data source, single point of truth, yeah? And from that, I can get all of this information out of the tool immediately. And that's the beauty of doing all the stuff in the front end so that you can have this reporting capability on the back end. Data at your fingertips, again, I'm trying to work to get to the point where I have what I'm calling a 360 view or a holistic relationship view of my supplier. So right now I have, if you pull up a supplier account, so those of you who are familiar with Salesforce, you have the customer accounts. Think about that for a supplier account. Imagine being able to pull up a supplier account and be able to see all the contracts ever that you've done with that supplier, master agreements, SOWs, insertion orders, whatever that is. But in addition, in 2015, I worked with my operations team very diligently on pulling in Oracle data, whatever SRP, ERP system, SRP, that you're using, whether it's Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, whatever it is, you can pull in that data into the Salesforce, my Salesforce platform. And now I have not only, I can pull up whichever supplier, IBM, Dell, Apttus even. I can pull up, I can see all the contracts, but I can also see PO data, current year, last year POs, commitments that we've ever had with the supplier, as well as invoices paid. So now I have contracts view, I've got this financial view, and then the next phase would be to then also have my team track and enter what are some of the relationship types of things that we're doing. Do we call them? Do we call them in? So the next phase, supplier compliance, right? Do we talk to them about our contract compliance? Are they performing? We have yet to get to that. That was like nirvana for sourcing and procurement professional 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. Now it's possible, okay? You guys are looking at me like, this is true, it's happening. Powerful supplier performance data, as long as you're capturing it on the contract, imagine extracting to the supplier SLA performance, committed prices. How are you measuring the supplier and even your business complying to those prices that you've already negotiated so that there's no leakage? You hear a lot people talking about contract leakage and supplier leakage and compliance and all of that, but you can't get to that until you can get to your contract piece first. Yeah? Any open issues and supposedly details, as well as this is all reportable however you want it, whatever metrics are important for your company and for your industry, you can develop it and build it here very quickly. So the project took me 6 months. I would also argue that if I didn't let people go on vacation or PTO or sick days or other training days, I could have done it in 4 months, right? And that's rolling it out to a global team of about 50-something people and a legal team of about 3 or 4 people, right? And so the adoption was very quick and very fast. It's the easiest, fastest rollout I've ever done. Again, it's available because I did it on the platform solution. It's on any device, whether it's, I know we show iPhones, but also even like Androids. I think we also have Android capabilities and so on. And so just leveraging the tool for what it does for the procurement and sourcing side. And now I can say to my team, guess what? We're using cutting edge technology that not just the salespeople have access to, but we have access to it now too. We're using the best technology as well. So we track our customers, right? We're very intimate with our biggest, largest customers. So why aren't we tracking information for our suppliers as well? Know your suppliers just as much as they know about you from the customer side. Why wouldn't you? You spend a lot of time, right, getting your suppliers in. You have to make sure that you can meet their needs and meet what you've committed to from a fulfillment perspective. Then, lessons learned. How many of you have sort of a business process digitization strategy? Not yet? You're back there? Think about one platform, and so that you have that one source of truth. One platform doesn't mean one big solution for everything you need. One platform just means you have to have the ability to be able to pull in data from maybe your different solution sets. You may decide it's best for your organization and your culture to have best of breed for each one. You might have a different solution for RFPs, for contracts, for whatever, but be able to pull all of that information and data into one big platform for your reporting. And AI on the back end. Data capture. Structured data is easier to capture than unstructured data. So are you capturing unstructured data? Are you capturing all the email exchanges that you have with your suppliers? And how are you keeping track of that? Data insights, you have to capture the data at its rawest form in order to have these analyses to be done in order to garner insights out of it, right? And then, of course, have it be mobile. It has to be available and accessible anywhere. My AAA theory. Okay? On that note, I know it's hot. Thank you for hanging with me. I might have been speaking I was trying to keep my own personal temperature down. But I think that's, oh, I have a little treat for you for those of you who stayed all this time. If you need to have a business case, just a second, if you need to have a business case around why digitization is so important, okay, I found a study that, don't let Linda Chuan tell you, this other company did a study from 300 or 400 different companies with proven results. At the end of the day, we're here to help what? The company make money. And if digitization is not going to help the company make money, then why do it? Here's proof that it does contribute to your positive ROI. So hit it, please. Thank you. They're in. You have to hear it. So on that note, that concludes my part of the presentation. But to give you something else to think about, robotics and how is that going to change procurement and sourcing from even a manufacturing perspective. So maybe I'll see you back next year to talk about robotics and some other AI stuff that's been going on in the industry. I don't know if you are there any, I think we have time for some questions. If you have questions, I need to put on these things to be able to hear your questions. This one right here, this gentleman right here.
It's a lot of the performance of your contracts, the terms that you put in SOWs or when you buy on the buy side is happening downstream, right? And the other parts of the organization, let's say there's a SOW for professional services or SOW for providing long-term services to your company. Is there a feedback loop that you have already put in your platform? Boy, that sounds funny.
Doesn't it sound funny? That's a great question.
That feedback comes back to you whether that vendor is somebody even looking at those metrics that you capture.
We are looking at it, but that's a great question in terms of an official or even automated feedback loop. We haven't had that sort of automated yet, but parts of my sourcing team attends all of my business partners meetings and so forth, so we do talk about supplier performance at those meetings, and then we bring that back, but unfortunately still at the traditional level of emails and taking notes. But that's a great question because I'm challenged with trying to decide whether I want to open up this contract database to all of my business partners. Right now it's just sourcing and legal. Yeah, because I want to make sure that the business partners understand the confidentiality and all the ways of not using contracts the wrong way. And so part of that, and I haven't been able to convince my internal audit for proper segregation of duties to whether open that up to the business partners as well. But that's a great question though. We attend those sort of supplier performance sessions, but there's not a formal loop that comes back yet.
Holy grail that I keep coming across in the contracts, especially in professional services. Of course, you don't want to expose everybody in the organization to the whole SOW, but the key parts in SOWs of the contracts that deal with metrics, how do you parse it out, maybe put in a separate dashboard or separate, another database and that other people can look at it.
We parse it out by how we, how do I put this? We develop a supplier scorecard. So my sourcing team also helps with the quarterly business reviews with that supplier. So we come up with that scorecard. We take it out of the SLA contract, put it into a scorecard, and most of the scorecards have the basic 5-6 criteria. There's quality, ease of doing business, and so forth. But sourcing, we come to the table. We help with that whole supplier management, performance management with the business reviews too. But to your point, it's not automated. That's my next thing. Supplier compliance, and how do I pull that SLA piece into a performance tracking system? Yeah. That's nirvana. I don't think we've ever been able to even get this far 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? Oh, one more. I think you have one right here, and then there's a gentleman over here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
You have to hear your.
It's on over here.
It's on your earphone. I
Hello,
know this
yeah.
is so weird. This is like my first time too.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, what technologies do you use for prospecting suppliers and then onboarding?
We currently use a third party, which I'm not a big advocate of. So I know Apttus has a supplier onboarding tool, and it's I would say think about Salesforce offers us communities, Salesforce communities solution. Apttus has their version as well. But if you think about if I were to do this at Salesforce, I would leverage the communities tool and open up it to become a sourcing supplier onboarding tool where you have the suppliers kind of onboard themselves. They create their own account, they upload their own information, make sure it's right, they upload all of the information you need, their TIN number, their insurance certificate, everything whatever you need. You pre-qualify them in that portal, in the supplier community portal, and then only when your business partner needs a new supplier, then you can tell your business partners, here's this list of suppliers in this space, in this category. who have been pre-qualified that you're go ahead and use them as much as you want. You should already have a master agreement also. Right?
Yeah, but that's very mechanical. It's very manual, I would say that. Do you have any criteria? How do you qualify actually? Any parameters?
Yeah, you're sourcing. Are you in sourcing?
No, I'm a Salesforce partner. So.
You're a Salesforce partner, so that's depending on the company. So it's different companies. If you're Kaiser Permanente, you're in healthcare industry, or if you're Gilead, you're going to have different pre-qualification criterias as a Yahoo or a Google, right? And so it depends on that company and what kinds of things they want to see. But usually, you have to be financially solvent for a couple of years. You have to have a positive or pretty good DNB score, stuff like that.
No, I understand that. But I said, do we really automate in Apttus that thing?
Do you want to take that one in terms of talk to how Apttus's onboarding solution could help automate some of that? Because what I'm talking about is opening a portal for the suppliers to do it themselves,
yeah.
But is that the similar?
It's very similar. So we're leveraging the communities in Salesforce,
Okay.
and we're automating the onboarding of suppliers, so you can have them self-register. You can collect information such as W-2s or W-8s, W-9s. We do TIN matching, OFAC screening. You can track performance, risk. You can track anything with an expiration date, like a certificate of insurance or an NDA. So it's automating that whole onboarding process.
But the data entry piece has to be done by somebody. The
I know.
initial point has to be done by somebody, right? But
Yeah.
we're pushing it to the supplier.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. This gentleman way over here, I'm going to make
Phil
you-
Donahue.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
I was a couple minutes late coming in, and I'm leading a project that actually is trying to tackle some of the same challenges that you have. And I'm really curious on why you selected Apttus, and if you could kind of take us through that process and
Sure.
what kind of helped helped you make
decision?
up your mind and make that decision.
It was really easy, to be honest with you. So at Salesforce, the hardest thing for a supplier, to your question about what's the qualification, they have to pass our enterprise security test and the whole, penetration testing and all of that, especially for software solutions that we're going to bring into our environment. Apttus is one of the few that passed. We were already using Apttus on the sales side for our sales contracts on the commercial side. And so it was an easy pitch for me to get the legal team onboarded because the sales legal team were already using it. So it was an easy sell to my procurement legal team, as well as selling it to my boss too. Apttus was already on the Salesforce platform. It's a partner, so I'm helping out with the whole Salesforce community, so it was actually really easy for that. But the most important piece of that was the enterprise security piece. Apttus was one of the few that passed our tests. And Salesforce, if you're one of our suppliers, you know how hard it is to get into Salesforce from a supplier perspective in terms of all those testings. It's pretty rigorous. Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you. Appreciate you staying the whole time. And you too as well. Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is so weird. But okay, first time. I think we're good. I think we did good.